Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to the initiation. This is the first installment of a series brought to you by the fact that I forgot. And to break down a little bit what I forgot, let me start by telling you an overly long story that could probably be summarized in one sentence, but nevertheless, you're here, it's too late. I began the relationship, I suppose we could call it, with the toy cars, the little toy cars that we were going to discuss today and have discussed in all the other videos, in 1987. That is when I received my first one. I purchased, with lawn mowing money, my first hobby-grade RC car, a Kyosho Ultima, which I meticulously built from a kit and upgraded to the point that it was unrecognizable, and then traded it for a BMX bike, as one does when they are in their teen years in the 1980s. And as time has gone by, and much time has passed, I must say, my relationship with RC cars has remained much the same. I get parts, I meticulously put them together, and I enjoy the fruits of those labors. At some point, and I think that the brand that will be featured today is kind of responsible for both the persistence of the hobby and the direction that the hobby has taken that I have been, perhaps, as has been pointed out to me by more than one party, too critical of. Because I am, I think, at my core, anti-RTR. Because there was a time, let us take you back, we'll go back in time to the 1980s when the RTR was not a thing. Radios still came with servos, that was pretty common, and there was no such thing as an RC car, a hobby-grade RC car, that you could buy in a box, fully assembled, take it home, and drive it. That wasn't a thing. You had to build it. They did all come complete. Kits in those days, back in my day, wheels, tires, bodies, everything. They came fully complete, and the kits were well outfitted. Fast forward now to the future, and I yell about RTRs at length because of what components of the industry are, the way they're weaponizing RTRs. But at the same time, I need to think back. When I bought the Ultima, there was no choice. It was a kit or nothing. Fast forward to some years later, I get back into it. I'm out of the hobby, I'm back into it. I buy an RC10 T3. It's available as a kit. You can buy a kit or you get nothing. I'm in that for a while, and then I'm out of it for a while, and then comes along the Traxxas Slash. And Traxxas, I definitely consider the pioneer of the RTR movement, and it really did, in my estimation, save the hobby. It brought a lot of people back in. It brought a lot of new people in because we had arrived at a point, for whatever reason, where people didn't want to build them. Little do those people know. So then you have two outcomes of that, right? You have the people that didn't want to build them and they see, oh, I can just buy this one, take it home and use it. You have what I see as two outcomes from that. The one outcome is they take it home, they drive it a few times, generally until they break it, and then that's the end of their relationship. Or they catch what we lovingly call the disease, and then it's just a long, inexorable slide into N+1, as we call it. You can never have enough. You're always getting another one and a different kind, and another one of a different kind. And then what you find out is, guess what? You're going to have that vehicle completely apart more than once. And then the next thing you know, you've made a kit out of it in the longest and most difficult way possible, because the kit, you're going to learn. You're going to learn from a kit. Boy, I almost dropped that. You're going to learn from a kit, or you're going to give up. Right? Because if you don't like styrofoam noises, I apologize. The good old Traxxas TQ, this is largely unchanged since the, at least the 90s. I mean, look at what we got. Steering trim. So basically, whether the body says kit for you to build or RTR, you're going to end up building it. I seem to remember that with the new clipless body, you push up under the fenders. There you go. And then I believe you push up under the fenders. There you go. This was the innovation. The subject of our video today and the series at large is the Traxxas TRX-4, and it is the Traxxas TRX-4 for a very specific reason. Traxxas has done something that other manufacturers are absolutely not doing. Other manufacturers are people love the de-shrinky, right? Other manufacturers are undergoing a process of, and I don't even know if this is in the dictionary yet, but if it isn't, it should be, what we call shrinkflation, where they give you less and they charge you more. The box of cereal is the same width and the same height, but it's thinner. RC cars are doing the same thing because the bottom line is always there, looming. So what manufacturers have to do, or choose to do, I think is equally likely, is charge you more and give you less. The TRX-4 debuted some long time ago. The TRX-4 as a platform debuted somewhere around 2017. So we are 7 years into the cycle of it, and realistically, this is the new TRX-4 Sport, which the difference between this one and the old one is it has clipless body mounts now. So there's no body clips. You just go click, and they go through these holes in the fenders, and they're done. But, and the reason, a big part of the reason that we are here today is when Traxxas re-released the TRX-4 Sport 8224-4, they did not shrinkflate it. Not only did they not shrinkflate it, they basically, the change between the elder Sport, the one that you can no longer get, and the Sport which sits before you now is, they put in the provision for clipless body mounts. They didn't change anything else. And honestly, today, that we have to appreciate that, because they didn't take stuff away. They just gave us an additional thing, and then something unheard of in the Markin segment, they dropped the price by $50. Formerly $379.99, now $329.99. And in my estimation, my advice as a person with some experience with toy cars, this is pretty much the only RTR I would actively recommend to someone. That's, I mean, as a hobbyist, the FMS FCX10 is great. It's not what this is. That is a topic that we will come back to later in the series, I am sure. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to do something that is basically antithetical to the way we work here. Rarely do we purchase RTR vehicles for that reason. RTR vehicles saddle you with electronics that you don't want and give you things that you don't need, and they charge you basically what amounts to an RTR premium, and then they give you no kit option, so you have no choice but to buy the RTR. And then what you have after you've bought the RTR is a bunch of parts. You're going to end up with a big old pile of parts sitting over at the side that you don't need, didn't want in the first place, but had no choice as to whether or not you got them. So we're going to do something that we don't do here. We're not going to change anything, because I have what I would like to think is knowledge, but may have instead transmogrified itself over time into preconceived notions. That is, there's the Canyon Trail in S1 compound from Traxxas is an excellent tire, but it's not the way it comes here. It's not a great tire. Or isn't it? I have not driven a stock, unmodified Canyon Trail in over 4 years. So I don't know. I don't remember. Is this vehicle... Let's get it moving. Okay. Are the shocks oversprung? Are the shocks underdamped? I don't know. I'm not going to go by the feel on the bench. I'm going to go by the performance on the rocks. So what we're going to do right here, right now, I'm just waiting for a red light to come on in the soldering station right over here. Traxxas plug. We don't do Traxxas plugs. All of our plugs are XT60s. So unless you've gone all in on the Traxxas ecosystem and purchased a plug with this, what will be required to turn this thing from, and they do not say RTR on the box, so bonus points there. They say ready to explore. You're going to need to fit a battery to that, and you're going to need to fit 4 batteries to this. This radio is emblematic of an RTR. It has no features, functions, or capacities. There is like a little dot menu where you can go in and you can actually set endpoints and stuff. But, I mean, we've got a single green LED that comes on, and we have a quick steering trim knob. The wheel tension is too high. It's way too high. The trigger is not bad, but the tension is a little too high. It is very large. It has a nice big, and it's very light, because it's basically nothing inside and then 4 AA batteries. So it has a nice bottom weight. It's not a terrible radio. As far as RTR componentry goes, and why the TRX-4 Sport is one of the only RTRs that I recommend. I feel like I'm trending too much towards absolutes again. The FMS FCX10 is a great option for somebody who wants something that looks great, has no plans in upgrading it to any significant capacity, and perhaps even intends to only own a single RC car in the crawler segment. Somebody sees their buddies doing it and they go, oh, I'd like to try that, but I don't want to get into it. This is more a series for people who either want to get all the way into it or just want to kind of casually get into it. There are over 50 rock crawlers in this building right here. So I'm having to try to forget some of the things that I think I know in order to look at this evenly. Okay, so follow me along. We're going to bounce around a lot. We are going to make one single non-performance related change before this thing gets driven the first time. Where it says ready to explore on the box. I was absolutely tickled by that when I received the box, because it doesn't even say ready to run, because I think that that's all legalese, because it does not come with a battery for the controller, and it used to, and it does not come with a battery for the vehicle. So it is not ready to run. You have to supply your own battery, and you have to supply your own batteries for the transmitter. It is ready to explore, but we are going to drive it in this plastic fantastic, ready to explore condition. If you have never experienced RC cars, or you have been in an Iron Man cave for some long period of time here, this is the venerable TRX-4 Sport platform. We have portal axles, front and rear. We have a single-speed gearbox that can be converted to a 2-speed gearbox. We have locked differentials at either end that could be converted to unlocking differentials. There are a lot of factory options for upgrades. Basically, to a point, I recommend none of them. If you're purchasing from Traxxas, purchase a TRX-4 Sport and end your purchasing with them there. Don't buy their upgraded servos, don't buy their upgraded electronics, don't get any of that stuff. The XL5 HV is based off of the XL5, which has been around for probably some 30 years now, and it is, of the speed controls that come in RTR vehicles, it's pretty much the best one, performance-wise. Similar facts for the Titan 21 turn. Most manufacturers are giving you sealed can 540s which is a motor that was about that long, about 10 millimeters shorter than this one. Longer motor makes more torque. More torque is better because we are trying to rock crawl. There are some weaknesses that I believe are built into this vehicle because Traxxas tried to settle somewhere between the knowledge that someone with no experience in these is going to buy a vehicle that tops out at walking speed and they're going to go, I didn't. When I got my first vehicle that moved at walking speed, I was like, why have I not been doing this? This is amazing. So there are problems that we will get to in discussion, but what we're going to do is I'm going to stop babbling. The red light is on. I'm going to wet this up. I'm going to grab me a plug. I'm going to solder an XT60 connector on there. I need an XT60 female. Dig it out of the bin here, which looks just like this. I'm going to replace that with that, which will allow me to put a battery in it. And then we're just going to go do what we do. We're going to go out to the rocks, and we're going to drive this around. And I'm going to give you this. This is a quick view of the TRX-4 Sport RTR, completely box stock. Does it do the thing? Does this qualify as an RTR? In a traditional fashion, I continue to be a mediocre documentarian and a terrible instructor because I just start doing things. Soldered this plug on, it's not a problem. And as I'm soldering it on, it occurs to me, what if somebody is brand new to the hobby? They don't own a soldering iron, they don't have all those things. How are they gonna put a battery on here? My best advice to that is hopefully you bought this in a physical retail location and you can be like, hey, can you guys put a plug on this? I don't want you to buy Traxxas chargers and Traxxas batteries. They are far too expensive. You can buy, for the cost of buying a Traxxas battery and a charger, you could buy a number of these smaller LiPo batteries, a charger, a soldering iron, the stuff to go with a soldering iron. You could buy all that stuff. Oh, next thing you know, what's happened? The hobbies get you hooked. Soldering is a skill everyone should have anyway, but always turn your radio on first. Always. Always and forever. This is the XL5HV. It is 2S and 3S capable. That is LiPo. If that is a confusing term to you, I apologize, but it is my impression that everything is LiPo nowadays. The XL5 3S, this is a little 3S right down there. I only operate on 3S. There is a singular 2S vehicle in the fleet. It is not a rock crawler. I mean, of all the vehicles I own, there's one vehicle that runs on 2S, and it's a drift car. That's the only thing I have that uses a 2S battery. There's really no point in this time in history to use anything below 3S. 3S is my go-to because there's a lot of motors that will, and ESCs that will only go to 3S. We'll probably get to that far later. So the XL5, you hold it for a second or so, it turns green. There's no tones, there's no anything. We're on. Now you notice I can do this, what they call crawler mode, go direct from forward to reverse. That is not how the ESC comes. It comes set for what they call trail mode, or as we called it, just normal, which means forward is forward, which is you pull this to go forward, and then when you push back, that's brake, and then when you're fully stopped, you can go into reverse. I only operate this way because when operating in a rock crawler, you need to be able to go directly from forward to reverse with drag brake all the way on. Drag brake is the vehicle's ability to do this and not roll away. So it's applying basically full power to keep it stopped. I want my drag brake at 100% and I want my reverse instantaneous. The servo, the 2075X, is, again, unless something radical has happened in the universe, inarguably the weakest point of the TRX-4. It is not fast. It is not particularly strong nor quiet, but we will definitely get to what is going to happen if and when that thing should happen to give up the proverbial ghost. But we are in completely stock configuration, having only soldered on a plug for the battery, and this will come up probably in episode 2. They look like mustaches now. They do give you a second row of decals to cover this bit of the fender. We don't put those on there. We only do the top piece. And that will become clear later, not right now. This is my first clipless Traxxas product. Okay, I get it. There aren't really any loud drawbacks to not having to use body clips to put the body on. I'm absolutely fine with that. The TRX-4 Sport, what do they call it? I know they call the other one the Scale and Trail. This is a Sport. It's a trail truck, it's a rock crawler. It's whatever you want it to be. But we test rock crawlers here. In my estimation, and I'll cover more of that when we're outside, there are some definite parts of this that are not rock crawler. How impactful those will be. I'm really trying to clear the mind right now. Get rid of all preconceived notions, eliminate as much knowledge that I have of what they can become, and start from a basis of what they are. So that's the goal. It might take a while. It's probably going to take a while. It's a TRX-4. It's 7 years old, except now this one has a clipless body. Let's take it on out. Let's run through the usual paces and steps and locations and see how RTR is it? Ready to explore. How ready to explore are we? Around 100 feet from shop to course, and it's a little tradition we have here to drive. We call it the drive back, and there are a great number of things that can be gleaned from the drive back. First of which, the responsiveness of the XL5, better than I remember. The overall top speed of the Sport gearing, every bit as spicy as I remember. Remember when I mentioned the Traxxas was trying to stay somewhere kind of in between? They want a gearing that won't be so slow to make people go, oh, this toy car can't even go as fast as I walk. But that will... top end is going to impact low end. I'm pulling the trigger quite a bit to get right here. If I have a singular complaint about the TRX-4 Sport fresh out of the box, it is one that is perhaps not unique to me, but I think would be noticeable by everyone, and I will put the germ of it in your head so that it may grow and expand, which is, now that we're on clipless body mounts, that underneath where you saw those clips under the body, they rest atop the fenders. So as you drive across uneven ground, as we are apt to do, the body goes clunk, 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 bonk, clunk, 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 bonk, clunk, bonk. So when we get into the very first instances of the low dollar, the free to cheap modifications, that is going to be one of the things. Look at you, TRX-4 Sport. Oh, man. See, these are worries that I have. Slick Rock approach, not the hardest line up Slick Rock, but box stock, and there is some modulability here. We're peg-legging real high. The pulse width noise coming off the ESC isn't even that bad. I'm just trying to shuttle that tire to right there. You know what? That is, I gotta say, I know people have strong feelings one way or the other about Traxxas. I have strong feelings one way or the other about Traxxas, and they tend to vary day by day. But you can't discount. We're doing the thing. We have a radio. Honestly, that turn signal, that turn radio, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. We have a radio that does nothing save for go forward, go backward, turn left, turn right. Sometimes that's okay. It needs to be pointed out. And this is a thing that I focus on a lot more than I think other people do. When it comes to geometry, I don't think people appreciate suspension geometry enough. The front end geometry, particularly in a TRX-4, is excellent. It's not good, it's not fair, it's excellent. Someone really did the work. The drag link and the panhard are the exact same length, so the front axle behaves very predictably. What we have here, and we'll see it as we get into more and more technical terrain, we will see the weakness of the canyon trail at birth, which is, it basically has, oh, I don't want to pull another one off. It basically has lugs that are too tightly packed. So that is not going to impact you in every situation, but when it does impact you, you kind of, if you don't already have the feeling, you will develop the feeling. You'll be like, I feel like we're getting some, what we call judder. You'll be getting some judder from the tire because the lug isn't cooperating with the surface. There's a little bit of judder. We can drive ourselves to some judder there. If I get that top tire over, really strong. There will be an installment where we will go through the processes of removing those tires from the plastic wheels. We'll go through that whole process. Now I'm super anxious to find out if the tires inside, the inserts inside those tires on those plastic wheels are the same inserts that have traditionally come in canyon trails, because they were never very good and they are doing absolutely okay today. We nevertheless stand in the box hoping for a fastball, but almost anticipating a curveball. Generally a good performance at that is surprising in terms of low speed. It's not ultra fine. It is definitely better than anticipated though. We're definitely getting into a little bit of, we've got too much lug. That curveball is, usually if you do well at slick rock, you're gonna do well everywhere. Ooh, we had to use a fair bit of throttle to get over that. We'll try a center cut on it and see if we do better there. How's the positionability here? A little bit more throttle. Okay, we don't want a right-hand shuttle there. That is rear bumper, bound in. Okay, I want to get up through this cut. Ooh, I cut throttle right when I shouldn't have. That right there was proof and evidence of what I will harp on in the future and have harped on in other videos about the sprung to unsprung ratio. I don't believe that the fore to aft weight distribution is as critical as the proportion of weight that is not supported by the springs. So that is the axles, the wheels, the tires, the inserts. That is more important because that all contributes to lowering your CG. This is fully stock, and we are definitely getting into some of that too tight of lug. The front end is staying down a lot more than I thought it would. When I get into this section right here, it is definitely tricky to maintain consistent throttle input. And if this could just demolish this, then we wouldn't have to go through all the work to try to make them better. You can see the bumper and the rear fender just hung up. And we can address that without spending, potentially without spending any money. That would be my goal. Oh, right, right? I'm cutting throttle. Okay, I gotta try. I'm still getting accustomed to the trigger tension. I gotta get up already. I'm not quick to attack any of the componentry. Driver mod is most important. Get used to the trigger pull. My instinct and inclination as someone, with a couple of these is to be like, just change the radio. We're definitely trying to look at total cost. Right now, we sit at $329. I don't count batteries for the radio or batteries for the vehicle. No matter what vehicle you buy, you're going to have to buy a battery for it. So, just soft set over here. We have portal clearance, which is great. We just don't quite have the compliance. I was really surprised. There's that bumper again. So what's our biggest problem so far? Departure. We're hanging the rear bumper up on a lot of stuff. And it acts far more sprightly than it is. The TRX-4 is not particularly light. Why it tops my list of recommendations is it's built like a tank. It's really, really overbuilt. And they're very studious about their fastener usage. You're not grabbing 27 different screws to work on it. There is definitely a top heaviness which we can potentially address with little to no expenditure. Yeah, I don't think an unmodified tire on this vehicle, unmodified, I don't think we can get up through that little notch there at Daphne's other line. I don't like to have to use a surplus of throttle to get through. And stock vehicles are stock vehicles. The joke has long been RTR means ready to replace. But they got us. It's RTE, ready to explore. So ready to enhance? So when it comes to side hilling, which is where we're headed right now, I have, like a skit in a sketch comedy show, lowered expectations. We are all but sure to roll out of this. Yeah. There's no weight on the passenger front tire. Maybe we can get enough I was gonna say, maybe we can get enough slip, but before I could even finish the sentence, away we go. So departure in first place. We're getting physically hung up. We have a surplus of sprung weight and not enough unsprung weight. That is common to virtually every vehicle out of the box. Even many kits available today don't have a bunch of any steering pointing up, and we gone. And you know, it's not the tire. The tire is not folding over on us. It's just center of gravity. The center of gravity is high. The battery is in a mid placement. We can address that for little to no money. Can I even get halfway? We are also, in terms of square theory, we are very tall relative to how wide we are. Width becomes a negative very late in the wide game when you start to approach actual square. Look at stadium trucks. Look at RC stadium trucks. They will be virtually square. Like their wheelbase and their wheel track will be very close to the same. Any steering input up the hill, and I'm just now starting to kind of get used to the wheel tension and trigger tension. Yeah. When you watch that roll, watch that roll. It goes fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. That's because of that disparity between sprung weight and unsprung weight, so it just wants to roll. The number one thing people like to do is throw brass at it, as we say, just add low weight. Removing total weight is also an approach. So every downside is paired with an upside, and one of the upsides to the stock gearing in this vehicle, which is not in my estimate, is just too high. Like, you can go too fast, but there's an upside to it. You know, when I have to carry a camera from one station to the next, I don't have to carry the rig with me or drive ahead. I just leave it over there and then drive over here at an obscenely high rate of speed. So it works. And the XL5's ability, here's a differential. All of the other ESCs that are going to come in RTRs can't really do this and then immediately do this. The XL5 is pretty good. It's a little underpowered because we'll get to some spots and just kind of stall. This is on 3S. So on 2S, you would have a more reasonable top speed, but your low end torque and your hill holding ability would be 50% less. And I don't want to make that trade. The Canyon Trail is an absurdly versatile tire. And if we're going to talk about stuff that's facts and not opinions, in terms of tires that come fitted to ready to explore and or ready to run vehicles, there is no immediate competition. Every other manufacturer fitting a tire has gotten it just wrong enough that when we think of all of the tires that come fitted to RTR vehicles, I can state authoritatively that in the fleet, none exist on a vehicle save for the Canyon Trail. Because it is that good. It is what I kind of consider as a benchmark for tires. Any tire has to try to do in a test format at least as well as a modified Canyon Trail. We will get into the modifications of the Canyon Trail later. We certainly have the weaknesses of the vehicle just in terms of how it comes configured as stock. It is quite ludicrously top heavy because it has no low weight fitted to it at all. Plastic wheels, single stage foam inserts. It is quite tippy. The approach angle is not remarkable. We're starting to lose a little bit of drag brake. Like we'll get up here, so we'll check the rollback. Yeah. Motor's getting warm, ESC's getting warm. We're making it do rock crawling things, and the rock crawling things are pretty tough on them. Honestly, speed in a servo, you don't need as much speed in a crawling steering servo as I think a lot of people think that they do. Power, torque is certainly more important than the speed. And thankfully, we can get into servos now with more than enough torque for our purposes relatively inexpensively. Yeah, you can see in this one. This is why all the test stations are a little different. You see the double wheel lift coming there? I don't think we have enough to keep the front end down. What? No. As I said, the tests get more difficult, and we can stop. I will say this: springing and damping, both pretty good. We've picked up a little click. Probably something in one of the center drive shafts. Little dirt, little bits. Overpowered the servo right there. We could see the tire come popping back. Use your portals. I mean, it's very abrupt. The handling is now approach is getting us. That front bumper is tucked reasonably high, but it does stick out quite a bit past the front of the tires. It is more about scale accuracy than it is about absolute performance. I'm thinking in terms of tier list today. We're thinking S, A, B, C, D, F, Z. I think more tier lists should have Z on them because we know that S is the absolute superior. You can't live without it. And that dovetails in nicely. Why the TRX-4, despite its age and despite everything else, why it rests atop my recommended list if you are in the market for an RTR is the shocks that it is fitted with. The Traxxas GTS shock are some of the best RTR shocks. They don't leak. They are some of the very best that you can get, and they come on every TRX-4. And if you want to buy them individually, you can go to dismantlers like Jenny's RC in Egg Harbor, New Jersey, and buy a set for around $40. And in terms of labor required, there's really no competition. They don't leak. They work well. In general, on Traxxas vehicles, they would just come too heavily sprung because Traxxas vehicles tend to be heavy. This is clear band in the front and white band in the back, which is 2.4 pounds for the front spring and 1.6 pounds per inch for the rear spring. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not doing the like Mercedes hop. I'm trying to move slowly. I am definitely getting used to the trigger feel on the controller. It's not my preferred, but it has a foam wheel. The controller fits my hand. The ergonomics of it are, you know what, they're fine. Let's see if we can come up here from the back. I know we're asking a lot. No, his approach is not getting there. We'll come back to this side. Yeah, that's speed. It's too much speed for me. If you can leave big dust clouds everywhere you go, it's going too fast. Ooh, that was a real weight transfer across there. We're going to be moving over to Daphne's third in a moment at dead limit. And if this thing can pass one side of Daphne's, that would be truly amazing. The maneuverability is absolutely what I would expect it to be. It is held back. Approach and departure are both insufficient for this obstacle section. And the grip of the tire in its stock configuration with the stock foam and the plastic wheel, it does exactly what I would think it would do. If this guy can do either side of this, I will be impressed. Just can't keep the front end down. As I mentioned earlier, every downside has an upside. We can't flip over backwards because the bumper sticks into the ground. So I think maybe one tire is still in contact with the rock. Okay, let's try the other side. No, it's not. Self-righting is great because we can do this. If you can get to the three-wheel motion, it's a little too fast. Now, there are power plans. There are options for you. Come on. Nope. There are power plants that will allow you to go that fast, yet still have low-end control. They will cost almost 50% the cost of this vehicle, and that is something that we are actively trying not to do. Where do we fly? Oh man, that is so early. I knew we were top heavy, but we are really, really top heavy. Let's see how we look on the bump. Like what are we getting return wise? Oh, that's you know what? Absolutely solid. Yeah. Can we get a donkey out of it at all? So the bump is absolutely wild. Luckily we have, and I mean wild like an untamed Barranco. When you get a lot of throttle into it, like if we go right here, a typical amount of bump, yeah, right there, fine. Oop, not quite holding the drag brake. A little much heat in there. The Canyon Trail is doing the work. It is doing a lot of heavy lifting right now, and we get a lot of energy return from the insert, like a lot. Usually, when you do this, you can't jump it. You can't get all four wheels into the air. It is good. It is very good right up until you get to, I guess what I would softly classify as a functional limit. We get to a point where it just can't it can't move forward. We get to weight transfer stuff. We get to the limitations of a very generic setup. Plastic wheels, inserts that fit the tire, but are they really optimally suited to the vehicle? They're better than I remember, but we can certainly do better. And if we didn't come over here to some dirt, what would we even be doing? I'm kind of curious. Yeah, this is that tightness of the lug. Counterintuitively, perhaps, a little bit more spacing in between the lug will do better on the loose surfaces like that. No, I guess that would be intuitive. Because we're not bearing the loads down that a full size, the real world vehicle would. A real world vehicle on very loose stuff like this, sand, snow, stuff like that, they want a tire that's almost slick. And we want more spacing between the lugs because we're applying, I mean, this rig would be sitting at about 6 pounds. Let's just say for real ease of use that we have a 1-inch contact patch per tire. So we have 4 square inches of contact patch and then 6 pounds split between that. So we're putting a pound, 1.5 PSI. So if we're slick, we just slide around. We need something to kind of bite in. And you'd have to go a lot further into it because it's not actually 1 inch because there's lugs. And then there's space in between the lugs, so it comes down to how many PSI are on each little finger of that square inch, meaning that the PSI is even, the actual weight per little lug is very low. We're not pressing down very hard. That said, pretty okay. If it's got trail in the name, it's generally going to be pretty good at transitioning between surfaces. Let's see if I can get it to the spot and get there. Yeah, but we can get out of it. I think that even now, I think still to this day, I think people sleep on the Canyon Trail. Canyon Trail is really good and really versatile, and I, in general, hot take, prefer a 465 to a 475. 1/10 of an inch, you say? You can't tell the difference. Oh no, I absolutely can. There's also the correct proportion of side lug on the tire. This is a fully unmodified, unbroken in Canyon Trail, and it's doing solidly okay. Now I'm wondering, boop, 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 what do I want the gearing to be? The stock gearing in there, as I've said, is too high. It runs a 39-tooth spur and a 17-tooth pinion, which is very nearly 2 to 1. That's like 2.3 to 1, which means there's not a lot of gear reduction going on. Gear reduction is mechanical advantage. Lack of gear reduction and lack of mechanical advantage mean that when we get up to a position like, we'll get up here and try to hang a tire up over there. Yeah, we get the rear end dug in well enough. It will. Remember, we got the rollbacks. We get that right there. It's because there's not enough gear reduction in the gearbox to overcome that. We're relying on the portals for gear reduction. We can change that very, very inexpensively, but its ability to maneuver at higher speeds have me questioning how much do we want to change it? Like, I didn't know if it was going to stop right there. I can tell you now, spoilers if you want it, we will be changing the spur and pinion 100%. I don't have a single TRX-4 based vehicle or vehicle with a TRX-4 gearbox that is fitted with a 39-tooth spur gear. It is not enough gear reduction. So we will be changing that. It does well at this, as it should. This is kind of the wheelhouse of the sport in stock configuration. It does this. You know what I've also noticed? Not as much bang and clank from the body as when I when I was driving it out. You'll get some real conk every now and again. I think we can fix that for almost free. For near free. It's just, there's a reason. When you see something unchanged in the evolutionary cycle of toy cars, which change pretty much annually, particularly vehicles used in competition, every year brings some new iteration of that vehicle. The fact that the TRX-4 Sport and the TRX-4 as a platform are largely unchanged over the span of 7, coming up on 8 years, that says something. They're going with the real Saturn model, which is, we're just going to sell the same car until people stop buying it. And here we are near the end of 2024, and I just bought this new in the box from A-Main Hobbies in Chico, California, because I thought, I want to see what I'm forgetting. What have I forgotten? And the TRX-4 Sport on the morning has already shown me that I've forgotten some stuff. I would classify the handling as above average, particularly when put up against its peers in the segment. RTR 10.3 base camp, Element Enduro SE, and the base camp is going to be $40 more. The Element, like if you're going with any of the Enduros are going to be $30 to $70 more. Like if you want to get into an Ecto or something from Element, you're looking at $70 more. And beyond, I got to fix that bumper. Beyond that $70 more, they come fitted with electronic suites that are Z tier. The FlySky G4P that is being used by most companies as their OE radio is absolute. The garbage isn't even hot. It's just pure bad. That radio is god-awful. All of your Element vehicles are going to be fitted with Reedy crawler motors, which are Z tier, and all of your Axial and Vanquish and insert brand name here are going to be fitted with some variant of the sealed can 540, which is simply inferior to the Titan 21 turn that comes in a TRX-4. They are solidly C tier. I would easily put, in terms of all things, I would put the Traxxas Titan that comes in a TRX-4 stock as B tier. That's a B tier motor. It does not actively need to be immediately replaced. Those 540s don't make enough torque. Particularly, RTR vehicles, for whatever reason, are following the same plan of as cars went through the 90s and 2000s, and they kept adding more rollover protection and more airbags. Cars just got heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. My first car weighed 1,800 pounds. The car I drive today weighs 4,400 pounds. RC cars are kind of going the same route. I mean, we used to drive buggies and stuff that weighed 2 pounds. Now 6, 7, a stock Vanquish Phoenix weighs 7 pounds. This guy's around 6. If we were gonna give this a review, and I don't know if I can give this a Metascore level scoring, like X out of 100, because the variables are too much. They're too much. We know that it's RTE, ready to enhance. It's RTR, ready to replace. So we're trying to look at what we get for our $329. It is inarguable that you get more for your dollar buying a TRX-4 Sport than you do buying an Element Enduro SE. The base camp is further hampered over on the Axial side. Those are the three. We're going to, for the remainder of this Midwest outro, we are going to retain it and refine it to the TRX-4 Sport, the Element Enduro SE, and the Axial base camp. The base camp is really hampered by its body. This thing self-rights extraordinarily well. They tucked the cab on the base camp body too much. It's very difficult to right it once it flips over. Is he good enough to roll this to where it lands on its side so that he can self-right it? Okay. Steer to the sky, reverse. TRX-4, regardless of the trim level of the TRX-4, is extraordinarily good at self-righting. I don't know if it's how the sliders stick out past the body. I don't know if it's the slab-sidedness of the body. I don't know if it's something unique to the Canyon Trail. The TRX-4 self-rights extraordinarily well. The Element self-rights quite well. The Axial Base Camp is really bad at it. So these are little points. These are points. I would put the Base Camp RTR, Hertz, Base Camp RTR is C tier. Because of the electronics, because of the body, because of the tires that it comes with, because of the things that need to be replaced. I would put the Element Enduro SE between a C tier and a D tier because of how it comes outfitted, because of the electronics, because of the tires it comes fitted with. It has the best body of the three, inarguably. The Enduro Sendero SE body is the best of the three. It's not even close. The Sport is fine. I have heard it referred to as generic pickup truck, and I think that's very accurate. But when it comes to the things, the other things, radio, TRX-4 wins. Tires, TRX-4 wins. Shocks, TRX-4 wins. Motor, speed control, and yes, even the 2075X servo, Traxxas wins on all three of those. We have a lot of stuff under this vehicle that doesn't need to be replaced. It is very, very durable. You can be very stupid with your TRX-4. I could almost get out of that. We have approach and departure, but sideways. There's a whole bunch on the TRX-4 Sport that we can change to improve our experience and our quality of life, spending little to no money. And if that's not the place to be, then I don't know what is. Both the Base Camp and the Enduro SE, you will have to replace things almost immediately. Almost immediately. The G4P is not survivable, that radio. Some people claim that it is. They're fooling themselves, because even this, largely unchanged for decades, is still better than a G4P. Maybe it costs more. Maybe Traxxas has got some sort of they got some sort of deal where nobody else can have it. I don't know. The TQ 2.4 gigahertz, largely unchanged from the one that had a 4-foot whip antenna that extended out of it. It just works. The tires work, the shocks work, the electronics work. The Traxxas TRX-4 Sport Clipless Edition is definitively A tier. S tier is reserved for something that you cannot live without. It is a requirement for your fleet. You must have it. You don't have to have a TRX-4. A tier is set aside for something that I would recommend to anyone without reservation. And the TRX-4 Sport is absolutely that. It does the things. It absolutely does the things. And its weaknesses are not these overwhelming, glaring, oh my God, I wish they had done this and not this. When they re-released the TRX-4 Sport and all they had changed was the body, I had joked when they discontinued the TRX-4 Sport, I said, don't worry, they're going to bring it back with a clipless body. And then they did. And that is all that they changed. And at the place that we're living right now in history, thank God for that. Because they could have nerfed us. They could have changed this to that and taken this part away. But the TRX-4 Sport is delightfully simple. The parts are robust. It performs out of the box genuinely better than I had anticipated. We will in subsequent episodes following this one, we will go down the road of performance optimization with an eye set firmly on minimizing expenditure. We're not going to change the shocks. We're not going to change the tires. We're not going to change the fundamental geometry and layout of the vehicle. Like, we're not going to be changing links. We're not going to change any of that stuff. This began its life as a TRX-4 Sport, and it will end its life, and it will continue for its entire life as a TRX-4 Sport. That doesn't mean that we won't change the body at some point, though it doesn't offend me. If the body stays, the body stays. What is underneath, what it is that makes the vehicle, the fundamental DNA of that, we will make great efforts to leave that intact. That for me, in this thing, which is not in it came from the workbench, not in it came from, not this, not that, for me, that's the point. Retain the TRX4-ness of it. And I hope that you will come back to see subsequent episodes. We are going to bake tires off of wheels. We are going to change gear ratios. We're going to do all the things. We're going to see all of the inexpensive bits and baubles that we can get off of the internet. And we're going to see where we end up with this, the TRX-4 Sport. He's our little tan man. He'll get a name. He'll get a name. We will get him suitably set to do the things. And I hope that you tune in for all of the little bits of that. I thank you so much for tuning in for this one, long as it may have been or not. And in between now and when we meet again, I hope that you one and all do your very best to have a good one. We will see you again here from the canyon, me and the tan little man. We hope you come back real soon as we see what we can make of a TRX-4 while keeping it a TRX-4.